David is king of one tribe in Israel, the tribe of Judah. Ishbosheth, son of Saul, is king of the remainder of Israel. And there is war between these two tribes. We keep reminding ourselves God has chosen and anointed the next king, David. But what will it take to get him to the throne over all of Israel? Let's see what the latest chapter brings. I'm in 2 Samuel chapter 3, verse 1, reading from the New American Standard Version. Now there was a long war between the house of Saul and the house of David. And David grew steadily stronger, but the house of Saul grew weaker continually. So we saw in the last chapter that David's men got the best of Abner's men in the battle. Now we see that this became a long war over time, with the house of Saul growing weaker and David growing stronger. Continuing verse 2, sons were born to David at Hebron. His firstborn was Amnon by Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and his second, Chileab, by Abigail, the widow of Nabal the Carmelite, and the third, Absalom, the son of Maacah, the daughter of Talmai, king of Geshur, and the fourth, Adonijah, the son of Haggith, and the fifth, Shephatiah, the son of Abital, and the sixth, Ithream, by David's wife Eglah. These were born to David at Hebron. So David had a number of wives, and the question is sometimes asked, did God condone polygamy in the Old Testament? Polygamy was not ordained by God, was not the will of God. From the beginning, in Genesis 2:24, it says, "For this reason a man shall leave his father and his mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh." Jesus quoted this verse in Matthew 19:5 and added a word. "For this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh." The Pharisees, trying to test Jesus, said, "Then why did Moses permit divorce?" Jesus said, "Because of your hardness of heart, Moses permitted you to divorce your wives, but from the beginning, it has not been this way." Sin entered the world and mankind adopted all kinds of practices that were not in line with the will of God. Deuteronomy 17:17 spoke to this practice of polygamy on the part of kings. It says, "When you enter the land that the Lord gives you and you ask for a king, he shall not multiply wives for himself, or else his heart will turn away." So similar to what we saw in 1 Samuel when the people asked for a king. It wasn't God's will. He was supposed to be their king, but God allowed it. So when we see a listing like this of David's wives, it doesn't mean it's God ordained. It's just telling us the facts. This is how it was. Continuing verse 6, "It came about while there was war between the house of Saul and the house of David, that Abner was making himself strong in the house of Saul. Now Saul had a concubine whose name was Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah. And Ishbosheth said to Abner, 'Why have you gone in to my father's concubine?' Then Abner was very angry over the words of Ishbosheth and said, 'Am I a dog's head that belongs to Judah? Today I show kindness to the house of Saul your father, to his brothers and to his friends, and have not delivered you into the hands of David. And yet today you charge me with a guilt concerning the woman?' Many kings not only had wives, but also concubines, and sometimes the concubines bore children to the king. This was a clear political move on the part of Abner to take up with Saul's concubine. Abner was making it known that he was taking the place of Saul. Making Ishbosheth king was just the first step in Abner's plan. Abner wants the throne for himself, which is why he was making himself strong in the house of Saul. Ishbosheth calls him on it, and Abner takes offense. Continuing verse 9, may God do so to Abner and more also, if as the Lord has sworn to David, I do not accomplish this for him, to transfer the kingdom from the house of Saul and to establish the throne of David over Israel and over Judah, from Dan even to Beersheba. And he could no longer answer Abner a word because he was afraid of him. So here's Abner's admission that he has known all along that God chose David to have the throne over Israel. And Abner's no fool. He knows David is winning this war. He wants to be on the winning side and maintain a measure of power. But the arrogance of Abner. First he makes Ishbosheth king. Now he announces that he'll accomplish this for David, making him king over all Israel. Abner is not sovereign and he's not in control of anything like he thinks he is. But God is working all of this in accordance with his will. Continuing verse 12, then Abner sent messengers to David in his place, saying, whose is the land? Make your covenant with me, and behold, my hand shall be with you, to bring all Israel over to you. He, David, said, good, I will make a covenant with you, but I demand one thing of you, namely, you shall not see my face unless you first bring Michal, Saul's daughter, when you come to see me. So David sent messengers to Ishbosheth, Saul's son, saying, give me my wife Michal, to whom I was betrothed for 100 foreskins of the Philistines. We saw this in 1 Samuel 18, where Saul promised to give David his daughter Michal in exchange for 100 foreskins of the Philistines. Saul's actual goal was that David would be killed when trying to get these 100 foreskins. David killed 200, twice that. But then Saul went after David's life. David had to flee, and Saul gave Michal to someone else. Now David says, give me my wife back. Michal also represents an important alliance for David as he seeks the throne over all of Israel. Continuing verse 15, Ishbosheth sent and took her from her husband, from Paltiel, the son of Laish. But her husband went with her, weeping as he went, and followed her as far as Bahiram. Then Abner said to him, go, return. So he returned. I'm sorry, every time I read this and picture the husband following behind her, it's so sad and yet hilarious when you picture Abner's face like, will you go home? Go, return. Now Abner had consultation with the elders of Israel, saying, in times past, you were seeking for David to be king over you. Now then, do it. For the Lord has spoken of David, saying, by the hand of my servant David, I will save my people Israel from the hand of the Philistines and from the hand of all of their enemies. So we learn even more that the elders of Israel wanted David to be their king. Abner probably used his power and influence to have them back Ishbosheth. Now Abner reveals once again that he was well aware that God had chosen David. Continuing verse 19, Abner also spoke in the hearing of Benjamin, and in addition, Abner went to speak in the hearing of David in Hebron, all that seemed good to Israel and to the whole house of Benjamin. Then Abner and 20 men with him came to David at Hebron. And David made a feast for Abner and the men who were with him. Abner said to David, Let me arise and go and gather all Israel to my lord the king, that they may make a covenant with you, and that you may be king over all that your soul desires. So David sent Abner away, and he went in peace. And behold, the servants of David and Joab came from a raid and brought much spoil with them. But Abner was not with David in Hebron, for he had sent him away, and he had gone in peace. When Joab and all the army that was with him arrived, they told Joab, saying, Abner, the son of Ner, came to the king, and he was sent away, and he has gone in peace. Notice this repeated phrase. Verse 21, he went in peace. Verse 22, he had gone in peace. Verse 23, he has gone in peace. This is important to the context. Continuing verse 24, then Joab came to the king and said, What have you done? Behold, Abner came to you. Why then have you sent him away, and he is already gone? You know Abner, the son of Ner, that he came to deceive you and to learn of your going out and coming in, and to find out all that you are doing. When Joab came out from David, he sent messengers after Abner, and they brought him back from the well of Sirah. But David did not know it. So when Abner returned to Hebron, Joab took him aside into the middle of the gate to speak with him privately. And there he struck him in the belly, so that he died on account of the blood of Asahel, his brother. So remember, in the last chapter, David's men and Abner's men were in a battle. Asahel was after Abner, and if he had caught Abner and killed him in the midst of war, it would have been justifiable, and he could have taken his spoil. Instead, Abner killed Asahel in battle. Asahel's brothers, Joab and Abishai, pursued Abner right away, and if they had caught him, it would have been justifiable as well as a part of the battle. But now it's a time of peace. That's why we were given that context, to understand that Joab has no right to kill Abner. This is murder. Joab wanted to avenge his brother's death. Joab tells David that Abner came to deceive him, but it's actually Joab who's deceiving David. He doesn't tell David that he called Abner back. How will David respond? Continuing verse 28, afterward, when David heard it, he said, I and my kingdom are innocent before the Lord forever of the blood of Abner, the son of Ner. May it fall on the head of Joab and on all his father's house, and may there not fail from the house of Joab one who has a discharge, or who is a leper, or who takes hold of a distaff, or who falls by the sword, or who lacks bread. Whoa, David said, let's be real clear that I had nothing to do with this murder, and he even looks to God for divine judgment. Remember, Joab is David's nephew. This is David's sister's son. But David makes no excuses for family. This is about right and wrong. Continuing verse 30, so Joab and Abishai his brother killed Abner. Now we see Abishai was part of it too, because he had put their brother Asahel to death in the battle at Gibeon. Then David said to Joab and to all the people who were with him, tear your clothes and gird on sackcloth and lament before Abner. And King David walked behind the bier. Thus they buried Abner in Hebron, and the king lifted up his voice and wept at the grave of Abner, and all the people wept. The king chanted a lament for Abner and said, should Abner die as a fool dies? Your hands were not bound, nor your feet put in fetters. As one falls before the wicked, you have fallen. And all the people wept again over him. Then all the people came to persuade David to eat bread while it was still day. But David vowed, saying, "May God do so to me and more also, if I taste bread or anything else before the sun goes down." Now all the people took note of it, and it pleased them, just as everything the king did pleased all the people. So all the people and all Israel understood that day that it had not been the will of the king to put Abner, the son of Ner, to death. So this is not a calculated move on David's part. He doesn't say, "Let me go ahead and mourn and make this look good so they don't blame me for this." He truly lamented this murder, and yet it does make him look good in the sight of the people to mourn in this way. Abner was known throughout the land. He was King Saul's right hand. And the people surely knew that war had broken out between Abner and David. So this mournful response on the part of David gives him favor with the people. Then the king said to his servants, "Do you not know that a prince and a great man has fallen this day in Israel? I am weak today, though anointed king, and these men, the sons of Zeruiah, are too difficult for me. May the Lord repay the evildoer according to his evil." David is clinging to God. Once again, he is not rejoicing in the death of someone who has caused him much hardship. He's pursuing righteousness. He's leading the people in righteousness. Meanwhile, God is working. When we see a chapter like this, there's so much going on. Houses at war, tension between Abner and Ishbosheth, Abner making moves, Joab plotting revenge. But all along, God is at work. He is establishing his will. We saw that in this long war between David's house and Saul's house, Saul's is growing steadily weaker, David is growing steadily stronger. David has one tribe. The house of Saul has all the rest of Israel. How are they growing weaker? Strength is not in numbers. This is all God. David has God's strength on his side. Every conflict that took place in this chapter, God worked it in David's favor. We love the promise, as we should, in Romans 8:28. God causes all things to work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. God is working when we don't see it, when we don't realize it. All the things happening in and around you, things that might be driving you crazy, conflict, difficult people, grief, long periods of waiting. Look above the circumstances. God is using each and every one of them for good. I love the word of God because we see it. We see how God is working in chapters like this one. Know that he's the same God in your own life. By faith, believe it. He is working.